So more than likely, when you're building out a web application, you're going to want to add something called documentation. I know some people don't actually add documentation, but this is something that's actually pretty important for a production-ready system. And for the starter kit that I'm working on, I went ahead and tried to add my own documentation, and I decided to land on using something called Nextra, which is a free-to-use documentation library that hooks directly into Next.js. Now, I started trying to build my own documentation because I thought it would be not too hard. But then you start running into all these different things like, okay, well, how do I have the ability to search over all my documentation? You have to think about adding the left side nav bar and have that automatically order your documentation pages and be able to expand them as you have nesting. And then also on the right, as you're reading through documentation, you want to know what sections are part of what you're reading. So there's a lot that goes into building out a documentation system, which is why I decided to use Nextra for the starter kit. So I'm going to show you how you can get this set up. It's actually pretty straightforward to do. And hopefully you guys choose to do this as well. So in my starter kit, I have a turbo repo and I have a docs directory here inside of apps/docs. And I also have an apps/web, which is where it's hosting the actual web application. If you go into docs, this is just a Next.js application that happens to be using the pages router. And inside the pages router, you can start adding MDX files to define the different pages for your documentation. Let me go ahead and run my docs over here just to make sure that they're on port 3001. And here is the initial work that I'm doing with the starter kit. You have all these documentation pages on the left. So to get a Next.js application converted over to a Nextra doc site, the first thing you need to do is you have to go into Next config and you have to add this require here to basically import the Nextra package. You get the npm install it, and then you wrap your Next.js configuration with this with Nextra call. And that's going to enable your next project to use Nextra. Secondly, there's this theme file over here you have to add. And this is used for configuring how Nextra looks. You can kind of modify some logos and other things. But after you have that set up, you can go into your pages folder and you can start adding new MDX files. So the way Nextra and a lot of documentation works is they use something called MDX, which basically allows you to use Markdown to write your docs, but then you have the ability to upgrade to JSX and import components and stuff as needed. Let's try adding something new right after the welcome section. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to say new page, and I'll say testing.mdx, and then I'll just go ahead and put a title called testing. Now saving that file, you'll notice that testing shows up down at the bottom. Automatically, you can click it. It tells you all the things that are on this page. So if I were to add some new sections, like section A, B. Notice that those automatically pop up on the right. You can do quick navigation for that. You can also search for, I don't know, section B if you want to, and that shows up down here for testing. A lot of built-in functionality that you're going to want to add in to your application. Now, for ordering, if I want this testing to come right after the welcome, what I could do is I can go to this meta file. So if you create this underscore meta.json file inside of any of your directories, that's where you can kind of rearrange how the documentation works. So in our case, I'm going to put testing, and that's going to refer to the name of the file. So notice this file says testing here. I'm going to make sure that that matches perfectly. And then I can title it whatever I want. So I say how to test. Go ahead and save that. And now you'll notice two things. It's showing up as the second link here, and it says how to test. So that's how you can order your documentation. But some other cool things is that you have like code snippets built directly into Nextra. So if I go and find like any of my TSX files, just do here, and I'll grab this. How about that? And then we're going to go ahead and paste that in, save it after I unindent that a little bit. Let's go back, and now notice that we have code that's automatically highlighted. It looks good. I don't have a copy code button. That might be a separate extension or plugin you have to install, but for the most part, it works pretty well. Maybe it needs to be TSX. Let's change to the TSX and see what happens. There we go. I think TSX makes it look a little bit nicer. But other than that, that's like the really quick overview of how Nextra works. And you can go through here and try to understand like what other components can you do. You can do code highlighting like I just showed you. You can do other markdown various things such as having like task lists and tables and auto links, etc. And one of the coolest things about this is it is MDX. So if you want to import and add a counter directly to your documentation, you can actually do that. So let's just go here. I'm going to go ahead and put a counter in this testing section. And this is just normal React code, right? I'm importing a useState hook. I am exporting a function called counter, and then I'm calling it. So if I go back to my docs and click this, notice that it just works like normal React. Now, I don't know if you need to export this. Let me try not exporting it and see what happens. So that's all I really want to share with you all. There are ways to customize your theme here and make it look a little bit more like your true application, because right here in the starter kit, I have a very different color background and I kind of want my docs to match that. So I need to dive into like how to actually customize these things, but I'm sure it's pretty easy. Yeah, that's about it. So if you guys are curious in seeing when the starter kit goes live, I'm just going to try to add as many features to this. And you can purchase it when it is live. Go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter. Go to wdcstarterkit.com. The link will be in the description. Other than that, have a good day and happy coding.